Social media and marketing in general can feel super impersonal, and that's why I'm excited to have today's guest on the show, Baldwin, who sent me a custom video proposal, y'all, to be on this podcast. So today we're going to dive into his amazing work that he does, all of the success he's had on social media. He's given 4 TED Talks. He's authored over 33 books. I'm excited to dive into that conversation shortly, right after this. Before we get into it, this episode is sponsored by Riverside, which is the all-in-one podcasting tool we now use for our show. And y'all, they feel super luxurious. Riverside is the all-in-one podcasting and video platform that gives you studio quality recordings right inside your browser. And y'all, it's super intuitive and easy to use. Once your recording is done, you'll be able to automatically download separate audio and video tracks and edit it all within a few clicks. It's really very easy. So head over to Riverside and you'll get 15% off. That's 15% off using my code DREA, D-R-E-A, at checkout. But y'all, it's free to get started. So click the link in the show notes and get started today. Dre, I'm so excited. Welcome to the show.
Andrea, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
You know, when I got that custom video, I watched it and then I sent it to my podcast manager and was like, I think we have to have Dre on the show.
I'm glad it worked.
Yeah, it worked. What inspired you to do something so custom like that? Because I'll tell you, I in all my years doing this, I feel like I've gotten 3 of these after 300 episodes.
Well, what inspired me to do that was just always looking for what can I do that doesn't scale? Something that I know is going to be different than what everybody else is doing, because I have a podcast myself, but I don't even have guests on my show. But I get pitches, those cut and pasted pitches from people's managers and things like that. And I said, all right, so if everybody I'm reaching out to is sending that, then how am I going to stand out? I had to do something that other people won't do. And it has to be real. What can I do that they won't do? And I know people won't take the time to do that. So I know me doing that is going to stand out for the people who see it.
Well, it definitely stood out to me. And I'm curious, how does this show up in other areas of your business? Because we think about businesses, scale is the buzzword, right? Everyone wants to scale. And you said you're doing activities that don't scale. So what else do you do in your business that doesn't scale? Man,
that's a great question. So it's just going back to when I first was, before even my business, like when I was an athlete and I was just trying to get on playing sports. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. I was just trying to get an agent to represent me. Usually agents come calling you and you pick one. I didn't have anybody coming to me. I had to go get them to pick me, to choose me, to accept me rather. So I would cold call agents even back in the days. I've always been a salesperson. So that's how I first started doing it. And when I realized that would work, because in the sports world is 1,000 guys who think they're good enough to get one job, right? So how do you separate yourself from the other 1,000? Everybody thinks they're better than everyone else. That's not enough. Like, what can you do that they're not going to do? So as far as in my business these days, I've always been a person who always read my comments. I always respond to my comments. I respond to text messages. I will have direct conversations with people who haven't even given me any money and let them just build that relationship. So I've always been big in just building a relationship with my audience, because that's really how I got on in the first place. It's just this random guy who nobody knows, but he's giving people value, and you can actually talk to this guy. You can't talk to the guy on TV or the guy in the magazine, but you can talk to this guy. And I've always been that type of person. And a lot of my ideas for what to do next comes from the conversations I have with people in my audiences. So it serves me at the same time that it's serving them.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go way back. You mentioned your time as an athlete, and you were cold calling agents to represent you. And I know when we think about athletes too, you're talking about the top 1% of the 1%, right? Everyone is talented at that point. So when you're calling these agents and you're doing the things that can't be scaled, what are you saying? Like, how do you stand out when compared to the other competitors in your space?
Great question. Well, the first thing most athletes are thinking is, well, I can just run faster, jump higher. I can dribble better and make a better jump shot. But I realize I've always been this person who kind of thinks in like deductive reasoning. So I'm thinking, if there's 1,000 of us all trying to get maybe 5, 10 available jobs, maybe even one, everybody's thinking, well, I'm just better than other players. So if they let us all get on the court, then I'll prove it. But better is extremely subjective, Andrea. So it's very hard to prove that you're better than somebody, because it's all based on people's opinion. So you might have this opinion, but someone else has a different opinion. Who's right, who's wrong? So I asked myself, what can I do that will make me stand out in a way that is completely different from them, regardless of skill set? And I knew that there were a lot of players in my boat who we felt like we were good enough to play pro, but no one was calling us. So I said, let me just call them. And again, I've always been a salesperson. At the time that I started my career, I was actually working as a salesperson at a gym, calling people and trying to get them to come to the gym to buy memberships. So I was already very comfortable with the concept of calling someone out the blue and trying to sell them something. So I was already in on it. Now I was selling myself. So if I could sell a gym membership, I could sell me, right? I believe in me more than I believe in the gym. So that's why I was reaching out to these agents. Again, once I had some collateral, I had a scouting report, I had some footage of myself playing. I said, okay, here's who I am. Here's what I have. And I knew what those agents wanted. An agent just wants somebody who is going to make money, who's going to get a job, because when their client makes money, they make money. So I knew what they wanted. I knew what I wanted. So let me offer them some type of mutual benefit here. If they believe I'm good enough, then why would they say no? Now, I called 60 of them. Only one of them said yes, but one is all you need.
Yeah. What is all you need? What is all you need? You know, what I love about this story too is the fact that you really hone in on the consistency of doing these calls, even though it took 60 of them before you got someone to call you back. And then also believing in yourself and using the skills that you have to focus on what that person wants. What does the person on the other side of the call want? And I think that's really, bringing it back to this podcast, that's really why I ultimately really enjoyed your pitch, because not only was it personable, you said, hey, Andrea, I was like, oh, this is just to me. But you also positioned yourself as like, here's what I can bring to your show. And so I think that unscalable model is super important when we think about business as well. How do we, instead of focusing it on, trying to make as much money as possible, how can we figure out the needs of the other people? So translating that into your business today, obviously you have a lot of success, all the TED Talks, the books, you've had content that's been consumed over 103 million times. How do you translate that cold call energy, like I'm doing this one-to-one, into the content that you create that has been seen by way more than one person?
Great question. So a lot of the things that I put out there, Andrea, are simply me answering questions that either I've been asked directly, which at a certain point you pretty much have answered all of those. And then you get to the point where you're answering the questions that people need to ask, but they don't even know they need to ask. And that's what makes us experts, because we're thinking of what you should be thinking about, but you are not advanced enough to do it. But that's the reason why they pay us. They pay us attention. They pay us money because we're 10 steps ahead of the audience. And that's the reason that our audience is our audience, because we're seeing what they're not even understanding. So sometimes somebody asks me a question or to make a comment, and I understand that their thinking is off, but they don't understand it. So my job is to get 10 steps ahead of them and help them understand, okay, the reason you're asking this question is because that's connected to this thought and this experience, but let me help you understand what you're not seeing. And then I make my material based on that. And the other thing is, I heard somebody say this once. He said that in his audience, if he gets asked the same question 3 times, he goes and makes a product out of that answer to the question. So whether that be, I'll go make a course, I'll go make a webinar, I'll go make I don't know what else you can make, a book, something to answer that question. Because if you get 3 people asking you the same question, it's probably another 10,000 who have the same question, right? Or they need to be asking that question. They just don't know it. So I create my content based on what are the things that I know people in my audience are either thinking, or they are going to be thinking, or they should be thinking. And I just jump ahead of them and show them, hey, this is what you need to be knowing. This is what you need to understand, maybe even before they realize it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. I want to get like super nosy and specific about your content strategy, but keeping it broad strokes as well. You mentioned, so this concept of someone asks you a question, you create the content, someone asks you 3 times, you make it into a product. Mm-hmm. My mind instantly goes to like, I don't have time for all that. So how do you balance the like need to create the product itself? Yeah. Versus the desire to create the like public free content that we see on, YouTube and in social media?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, first of all, having a process. So the cleaner and smoother your process is, then the more you can mass produce, for lack of a better term, either your content or your products. Because if you have a clean process for, okay, every time I write a book, these are the 17 steps I need to take to write a book. So you're not reinventing the wheel every time. So that way, if it takes most people a year to write 1 book, you might be able to write 3, right? Because you have the process. Same thing with content. If it takes someone a week to do one video, maybe you could do a video a day simply because you have a process and all you have to do is just follow that assembly line process, so to speak, of what you're doing. So number one is the process. Number two is you have to draw a clear line. You have to have a structure. And the structure is a line between what do I do for free and what do I do for pay. And when you are clear what that line is, then it's easy to make the decision of what's going to be free content versus what's going to be paid. And what I found when it comes to content is that a lot of us who are in the thought leadership space, a lot of the stuff that we offer behind the paywall is really about the personalized help that people want with the same stuff that we already told them for free. So it's not necessarily that we're creating brand new stuff when you get into the behind the paywall that all of a sudden we got this whole hidden world of material that you never knew about. It's just that we're giving you more hands-on application of how to use it specifically for your situation, holding you accountable to making sure it gets done. And what a lot of people do these days with group materials is now you also connect with a community of like-minded people who are also on the same path as you. And those things are all worth money. And I've heard marketers say that you can take the same material and put it into a different package and the value of it changes because it's a different approach. So the material that's in, a lot of coaches have books, right? And a lot of the material that's in their coaching program that you may pay tens of thousands of dollars for is all in the book. But people don't value a book that they pay $20 for the way they value a coaching program that they pay $25,000 for. That investment gets more of their attention and they pay more attention and therefore they get more value out of it because they're more invested. So it's a human psychological thing more than it is a tactical information thing. Because what I tell people in my audience, I have a lot of entrepreneurs in my audience, is that ChatGPT and Google have us beat on information. You're not going to win that race. So this is not about information. It's about how it is applied, who's being held accountable, and the relationship you have with your audience. That's what matters the most.
Yeah, 110%, especially in the age of YouTube. You can literally just look up anything you want to answer to. Exactly. And there'll be several mini opinions you can scroll through to figure it out. I love that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to get nosy about your specific content strategy when we get back. If you are launching anything on social media right now, I've got to share with you my free launch planner. Now listen, this is not a new thing, but I completely updated it for here, now, and today, and you can grab it by going to OnlineDrea.com/launch. Inside, you will find not only your launch posting kit, but a pre and post launch plan and a full 24-day social media launch calendar. This is exactly what I teach inside of my programs, and I'm giving it to you away for free. Try it out for yourself, OnlineDrea.com/launch. We're back. So just taking a quick look at your socials. You've got Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, TikTok. You're a lot of places. Plus you write the books, plus you have your offers. What is your main content focus right now?
Main content focus is probably my masterclass, also known as podcast. I call it a masterclass. My daily show comes out every single day. So it's only me talking. So it's kind of like the radio. So if this was 30 years ago, I had my own radio show, but since it's today, I got a podcast. So it's just me every day, just giving people the game around the work on your game philosophy, whatever I see. And as we talked about, whatever questions I think either people are directly asking me that I haven't thought of answering yet, but since I've been in the game for so long, often it's me answering questions that people haven't asked me yet, but I know they should be asking. So that's my main place, is that daily show. And then a lot of the material that I put out on the other platforms are simply derivatives of things that I've talked about there. So that's basically the feeder, and everything else kind of plays off of that.
A daily podcast takes a lot of discipline. And I know discipline's something like it's a core part of what you talk about.
Yes, it is.
But for entrepreneurs thinking about daily podcasts, like how should we think about discipline in order to make a project like that successful?
Oh, that's a great question as well. So discipline, first of all, biggest challenge people have from discipline is that they try to force feed it. And that's the wrong way to be disciplined. There are probably a lot of people listening to this who probably feel like I need to be more disciplined at fill in the blank, going to the gym, with managing my money, with spending more time with my kids, spending more time with my significant others, starting my podcast, finishing my course, writing my book. A lot of people say they want to be more disciplined with a thing, but they aren't being disciplined at it. Is because they're trying to force it. when instead you need to understand how discipline works. Discipline is a result of structure. When you have a strong structure, discipline is a natural byproduct of it. So if you think about the example I like to give is when you were in second grade and the teacher didn't come to school that day, but a substitute teacher came in the classroom, what did you and your classmates immediately think? You think, all right, today is going to be a zoo, right?
Yep.
We can do whatever
Acting
we want.
up.
Right, exactly. Why? Because the teacher represented structure. And when the main teacher's not there and the substitute walks in, you know that there's no structure, therefore you can do whatever you want. So structure creates discipline, and structure comes from having clear principles. A lot of people don't have clear principles or a personal operating system. The same way that the iPhone has an operating system, and every 6 or 7 months or so, they give you a new one to update that operating system. Humans need an operating system. And when you have a clear operating system, that means you have clear principles, which means you don't need to spend a lot of time in deliberation and decision making. So that operating system leads to, this is the structure I'm going to follow because it's a reflection of my principles. The discipline is a result of the structure. As a result of that discipline, you have confidence. Confidence leads to performance, performance to results, results to rewards. So that's the process that everyone needs to follow. And when it comes to, I don't even remember exactly what your question was. I kind of went on a tangent.
No, I love it. It's all about like discipline and how to set that up, especially considering you have this daily masterclass that you produce.
Yeah. So the thing is, Andrea, this goes to another thing. You asked me at the beginning, what do I do that doesn't scale? All right. So when I first started my show, I said, all right, because I started my show in 2016. And at this time, 2016, there was a lot of people doing podcasting. So a lot of people jumping in because before that, I was doing YouTube. And then YouTube got saturated. Everybody was doing YouTube. Now everybody's doing podcasts. So I said, what can I do on my show that's going to be different from everybody else who has a show? I said, all right, well, I can't just prove that I'm better than them. So what else can I do? I said, all right, I'm going to put out a show every single day. And that's what I did. I said, I'm going to put out a show every day, but not like the little 3-minute episodes. I'm going to do like 20, 30 minutes every day, which is what I do. So every day is a 20, 30, sometimes 40, 50-minute episode, depending on what the subject is and how much I have to say. And just put it out every single day. Now, that does not scale. That is not AI generated. That is not, I don't do replay episodes. I don't run back an episode from 5 years ago. If you missed it, you missed it. You can still catch it. I mean, it's free, but I put out new material, fresh material every single day, and nobody can beat me at that. So that's another thing that doesn't scale that I've always done. So that's the discipline is a result of the structure a result of the principle is a result of just the decision that I made. What can I do that other people aren't doing?
I mean, even the thought process behind like, how can I do this differently from other people is so interesting to me because especially as a marketer, I always think, oh, here's what I know works, because I see this time and time again. So I'm going to take this formula and just keep applying it. And this is where you get the saturation, right? The reason it worked the first couple of times may not be the same reasoning, 5-10 years down the road. So what you've done is you've gone, how can I do this differently? Knowing that better may not be the difference, right? It's not just better. Right. It's you've gone more quantity. You've gone in a way that just your body of work is so large now because you've been doing this for so long. Okay. So back to like the specifics of this masterclass, the show itself. What are the systems behind that? Like, do you have a team supporting you? How do you record it? Like, I want to know specifically how you produce it daily, because that's like mind blowing.
Yes, another great question. So I record it actually in the same. I could be recording it right now, and if somebody was watching from the outside wouldn't know the difference. So it's the same setup as I have right now. So I record on this mic, same mic I'm talking to you on, and the audio I record through Audacity, which is free software anybody can use right here on a computer. I have a tripod right here where I record the video version. And then I do have a team. My audio people are in the Philippines. They just master the audio and make sure it sounds studio quality. Then I train them on how to put it up on the RSS feed. And then through the RSS, by the way, if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's just the feeder system into all the apps. So the Spotify's, the SoundClouds, et cetera. I mean, Apple, all those. So they put it into the RSS feed. Then it automatically goes out to the podcast apps. Then we put up a blog post for each episode. They know how to put that up on the website. And then it gets shared out on all the socials. And then what else do we do? And then we take sometimes that material. So if anybody looks at my Instagram, you see that I do these reels on the whiteboard where I'm standing in front of the board and I give you 3 points that's usually from one of the episodes that I've recorded at some point. But since I have almost 3,000 episodes, I can pick any episode from the last 7 years. It doesn't have to be today's episode that I do a reel about. I'll pick one from 5 years ago, and I can do a reel about that one. I can write an article about that. I can take every month. Actually, I have this book that we put out called The Black Book. And this is something we send out to members of our program. I get every episode transcribed, and then we put it into a book. And we send this out every month to everybody in our university. So, and then articles. A lot of times the articles that I write, they're not transcripts, but it'll be a written version of something that I talked about at some point on my show. So this is, as I said, it's a feeder system from what I talk about on the audio. Eventually it becomes written material, it becomes social media content. It can be a caption to a post that I put on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. So we're always just I'm always looking for ways to systematize these things, and we can make it even better. Because I have a few books out now, but I could probably put out 1,000 if we can make it even tighter system with this whole thing. So I do have a team, and they do their part, I do my part, and we got a kind of a well-oiled machine, at least as of today.
It's just tickling me that you said a few books, just 33 casually, a handful. No, I love that you have this system in place and that the masterclass really drives the content for everything else that you do. What are some of the success metrics you look at as you're producing the masterclass? Are you looking at the episodes that get the most listens, the longest listen time? Are you looking at, which ones get the most traction on social media? How are you deciding if this whole thing is worth it for you?
Biggest thing for me is when I told people this probably when I was maybe 1,000 episodes in, why, if you're going to start a show, if you're going to be on YouTube or you're going to be on a podcasting app or anywhere where you're going to be putting your voice and your thoughts out there, or even blogging, why would you want to do it? Number one reason is you have something to say that you can't not say. That's the reason why I started my show, because I knew I had things to say and I needed a platform through which to put them out that I could not say these things. And I like YouTube, but YouTube requires a very strong visual. And I was never good at video editing. The good thing about audio is that I can record the audio. I can send it to my audio team. They can edit the audio. And it's much easier to edit audio than it is to edit video. Editing video is very resource intensive, very heavy on resources. And I do like making videos. I still put videos on YouTube, but the audio does a lot better for me because I found that my target audience, my ideal clients, these are people who are running businesses. These are people who are making low to mid to high six figures. They're not watching YouTube videos. So they don't have time. Right? They have families. They have kids, and they don't have time to watch YouTube. But when they're going to work or they're in the middle of their workouts, they can listen to an audio show. And that's where a lot of them find me. So it's not just what I personally believe I should do, but it's also understanding who's my target audience, who are the people who are responding the most strongly to me. There are people who find me through audio, and not only my audio, but also on other people's platforms as well, but specifically through the audio versions of the episodes, not the videos. So it's just interesting in that way. So not that I don't use social media, but I found that my ideal clients, the majority of them are finding me through audio.
Yep. Yeah. I find the same for my service clients where, they're not looking up a tutorial about how to post an Instagram reel. That's a totally different audience from someone who's asking a different question. Like, how do I think about social media as it fits into the larger scope of my business? It's a broader question that fits a very specific group of people who are a little bit farther along in their journey. And so I find it interesting that your audience mirrors that as well. And that they want the convenience of the show that's in their AirPods as they go about and do their work. So how do you track then those people who listen to the podcast and then they are into your funnel? So for a little bit of context here, I already know podcasts to track any sort of funnel is very challenging. So I am asking this also personally as well. But we find this anecdotally for us. People will say, I found your podcast. I listened to every episode and now I'm here. Right. But I'm wondering, how do you track that success for your audience as well? Are they telling you they're listening to the podcast, or do you have other metrics that you're looking at?
No, almost the same as you. We asked them, how'd you find out about me? Whenever I'm on a call with somebody, how'd you find out about me? How'd you find out about us? What were you looking for when you found me? And a lot of times people will say either A, I listened to Andrea's show and I heard you on there, and that's how I ended up in your world. Or B, I was just looking through the podcasting app looking for a show on X, on topic X. Yours came up. I gave it a listen. I liked it, and I've been listening ever since. So they just tell you. So anecdotally is pretty much the only way. Podcasting stats are, they're kind of hard to track these days because you can't really track. Google hasn't quite gotten to the point where it can index video and audio the way it can index text. And I've been telling my audiences that when they get good at doing that, it's going to change the game. For everybody who has audio and video out there, it's going to change SEO as we know it. So for somebody like myself or someone like yourself. But for now, it's really just asking the people, how'd you find me? And that's the most important thing anyway. And you can't, hopefully it doesn't get to the point that some software can track that, because that's a little bit too much data breach, a privacy breach, if they can track everything like that. I'd rather people just be able to tell me, hey, I just found you on the show. I listened to your show, whatever. So that's how we know, same way as you.
Yeah, you're right. At some point, it's like, all right, this is a little bit too much data.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that you still maintain that personal connection too throughout everything you're doing. Even something as simple as asking someone on a form or on a call, how did you hear about us? It's just that other little touch point.
Right.
So what's next for you? Are you exploring any new avenues, topics, platforms, a new book, perhaps?
I made a pact with myself that I wasn't creating anything new in 2023. So by the time you hear, I know we're recording this way before it comes out, but I told myself I wasn't creating anything new this year. And as of, we're almost at the end of, hope you don't mind me mentioning, we're almost at the end of 2023 and I'm recording this, and I have not created anything new. I did not create a single new funnel. I did not write a single new book. I did not launch a single new product. All I wanted to do this year was focus on what I had and really zone in on it. And that's our coaching program. That's the main thing. But going into the new year and really at the end of this year, this in quarter four, really been focusing on offloading and getting other people who are way more skilled than me on jobs and not necessarily under our umbrella. Like, these are not employees. So I don't want to build another funnel. I'm never building any more funnels. So I want to find a funnel builder, found that person. So I know what they're going to do for me and how they're going to do it. The professional speaking business, I have not really been focused on that a lot probably since COVID. But I've been on shows of people where they're like, Dre, you need to be speaking. Like, you're leaving money on the table. So I need to get back in the speaking business. So I know what I need to do for that. And I know the people who can help me with that. When it comes to finding more of the ideal leads for my coaching business, found the people who can do that. And there was one other thing. Oh yeah, getting the right landing page or home page, what they now call Funnel Hub, because I use funnels. So getting that built by the right people. And there was one other thing, I can't remember what it was, but everything is about offloading. So that's my mindset now, is offloading. I can do those things. Everything I just mentioned, I can do, but I don't like logging into the ads manager. I do not like building funnels. I do not like editing audio or text or video. And I just need to get other people who love doing that stuff to do it. And I will pay them gladly to do it for me. So that's my focus right now.
Yes, I'm giving claps for those of you who are listening, because that there is a point in your business where you shouldn't be doing everything, because it actually would be holding you back. So I love that for you. For those folks who are listening who are like, I need more Dre in my world, you have a free book that you're going to give away. Tell us about the book.
Yes, that's this book right here. For those of you who are watching on video, is my book called The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. And the concept of this book was actually sourced from back in the day playing ball, when basketball players would ask me, Dre, how are you always in an empty gym by yourself? Like, do you own the gym? Do you have a gym attached to your house? Do you rent it out so nobody else can use it? And the answer was none of those things. And I started explaining this concept of the third day, which is, everybody knows where that gym is. There's actually a public gym owned by the city. The membership's like $9 a month. So it's not like Equinox where you are priced out. Anybody can get in. But people didn't come to the gym simply because people were not consistent. First day, everybody shows up. Second day, a little bit fewer people than the first day. And by the third day, is only the regulars. All right, the same way it works in the gym. All right, in January, everybody's in the gym. By February, is still you got a few new people. And by March, you got the same people from last year. All right, and that's pretty much how the third day works. So the third day is not specifically 1, 2, 3 days in a row. It's about the situation in life when you realize that the thing that you signed up for is not one big party, is not going to be all fun and games. There's some actual work and some grind that goes into it. And what are you going to do? It's about the decision that you make. Are you going to keep showing up and deal with that grind and do that work, or are you not? And this is why I call it the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs, because as a professional, you must show up when there's a grind. Otherwise, you will not get paid. And therefore, you're no longer, by definition, a professional, because professional gets paid for what they do. And amateurs, they have the option of not showing up because they're not getting paid anyway. So if you don't show up, nobody cares. But a professional, you must show up. So that's what this book is about putting the structure in place that leads to the discipline so that you can show up consistently and do your job, even when you don't feel like doing your job, because everybody has days when we don't feel like doing our jobs, but the professionals show up and do it anyway. So long answer to a short question. I give everybody a free copy of this book. All you have to do is cover the shipping, and it's $9.95 US internationally. I believe it's $19 internationally, might be $29 internationally. And that's ThirdDayBook.com. ThirdDayBook.com. Just spell that all out, and we'll give you a free copy of the book. Just tell us where to send it.
That is awesome. I love that. Thank you, Dre, for that gift. Y'all check out that and all of the links in the show notes, OnlineDrea.com/308, because this is episode 308. Dre, this has been awesome. Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you sharing your platform.
Awesome. And thank you, dear listener, for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Helps keep us in the top 100 marketing podcasts. I'll be back soon with a new episode, but that's all for today. Bye for now.